David Harkin is the founder and CEO of 8 billion ideas. He is a disruptor extraordinaire of education. He's really shaking it up. Entrepreneurship is his business, and he has created a great business. He is also a massively impressive marathon runner, which you can tell by the body types. I'm not, he is. Dave, thank you very much indeed.
Very much. Cheers, good afternoon. Oh, good afternoon, it's still the morning. Good morning, everybody. How are we? We having a good guest conference? Brilliant, we're gonna do an icebreaker here, so you've got to be taking part in this. I'm gonna play a game of, would you rather be? The first question is, would you rather be a space tourism operator or a cyber security specialist? I can't hear you, guess. Space, okay, fine. Would you rather be a virtual surgeon or a climate change reversal specialist? You're pointing this way, I'm looking down here. Right, we'll play with the last one. A work from home facilitator or an ethical hacker? Quite a lot of hackers in the room today. Well, look, good morning. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. These are just some of the free resources we've produced, and we've got them here at GESS. I think our stand is U34, thank you very much. And you can go pick up one of these packs of cards. There are future job kit cards, 52 cards, jobs of the future, just to shake up the career discussion for young people right now across the planet. Today I'm going to talk about the 3 E's of leadership. But before I do that, I think it'd be sensible to give a little bit of an introduction to me and what my organization does, which is 8 billion ideas. So first and foremost, it's important to say I'm a passionate dad and husband. You can see my family there. I've got 3 boys at home, Toby, Harry and Ben, 7th form 1. So I'm brilliantly busy and I'm terrifically tired most of the time. But the reason why I mention that is since becoming a father, it's giving me that extra energy to put into education and make sure that they're benefiting from what we're doing. The second is I'm a passionate educationalist. Do we have any of those in the room? A few hands over here, a little bit quiet over here, right? Everybody in this room, no doubt. I think this is the best sector on the planet. I hope you'd agree with me. I think education is the best sector on the planet because every single day we have the opportunity to create memorable moments in our school. And if you close your eyes for a few seconds and not fall asleep, please, what I mean by a memorable moment is a moment that you're probably thinking about right now when you go back to your own schooling, when a teacher did something which changed your view on the world. Okay, it could have been an inspirational assembly. It could have been a win on the sports field. It could have been just a corridor conversation. But all of us have those moments and those memories when we were at school that really changed our view in the world. For me, it was actually my first ever history lesson was one of my moments where my history teacher, Mr. Green, in my school in the UK, jumped on the desk in the first ever history lesson. And I'm not advocating that everybody should do this, but he pretended he was Henry VIII for that entire lesson, and he taught from the top of the desk. And in my class, over 70% of the people in that classroom went on and studied history at university, and I believe it was the first engagement with that subject. That is a memorable moment, and 8 billion ideas, we take great privilege and pleasure in dealing with students every day so we can create memorable moments. The last is a passionate CEO. And that E, which is what we're going to dive into today, I don't always think stands for executive. I think it stands for emotion, energy, and emotion, energy, and education, okay, which we're going to touch on in terms of the 3 E's. In terms of what we do, our mission is about giving every student on the planet the skills and belief to go change the world. We've never met a child anywhere across the planet who doesn't have an amazing imagination. Would you agree with me? Thank you very much in the front row. Every child out there has an amazing imagination, but every child is on a different journey with the amount of skills and indeed the belief that they might have. So we operate in what I like to call the critical curriculum space, which I said last year at GESS, and it seems to be kind of hanging around as a phrase, which we're going to keep going on. Often this is talked about as extra curriculum, but these areas of entrepreneurship, health and performance, sustainability, as we just heard about, careers and well-being, we don't think these can be extra anymore. These need to be critical and built into every school across the planet. So we're an edtech company with that blend of services, which is really important. How we engage with students, we've got lots of flexibilities. We have our challenge-based learning for our youngest students. We have a curriculum for our 11 to 14. What we mean by that is integrated learning week to week. We've got lots of courses, so typically we're being used in kind of drop-down days and our CPD, so 4 Cs there. Just how it looks, very different from school to school. We have asynchronous, virtual, hybrid, live offerings, lots of flexibility there. And just to give you a little bit of a flavour for some of the projects, this is what we do with our youngest students. So our year ones, for example, they're straight into a program we've got called Light Bulb Moments, which is about coming up with an idea which could change the world. Okay, and when you work with 4 and 5-year-olds, it's absolutely wicked, the stuff that they come up with. So we have a challenge-based approach, start, middle, and end. But what you can see there is the introduction to some really core and basic areas of entrepreneurship. For our curriculum, this is where we work with students week to week, where we sneaked into the timetable when they've got an 8 billion ideas lesson. And what they do over a year is they take part in a 30-part program built into 6 different projects. This is just an example of year 7, or those starting out in secondary school, where they're taking part in these projects per half term, whether it's well-rounded, instant business, world-class design, or sustainability world. It's that blend of entrepreneurship, skills for the future, and career education. And you can see what they move on to as they go through the curriculum. Lastly, we've got flexibility as well, because we know integrating into timetable can be quite difficult. 2 of the biggest challenges in education are time and budget. Nobody's got any time, and budget's always a problem. But if there's a will, if there's a way. But one of the things that we do, particularly with our senior students, is we've got loads of courses, 1, 2, 3-day courses, such as Startup School, City Changers, Beyond the Metaverse. And what we typically see with our senior school students is that the schools or heads of years make sure they have drop-down days where students are taking part in these programs. So we love what we do. We work with schools all across the world, 20 different countries right now, about 500,000 students on an annual basis, and the team is growing. We've got a couple of the team in here, which are nice and vocal when I'm asking questions, but a team of 42 now, 8 billion ideas, and we're growing as a team. But as you can imagine, you learn quite a lot as you're growing a business. No doubt we've got some business owners in the room, and you start up with an idea, you're just an individual, then you start employing people and you become a business owner, then you're an entrepreneur, then suddenly you're a CEO. And you just go, wow, that's happened quite quick. But I've learned a lot along the way. It's been really interesting, and I want to share the 3 key things that I've learned from a leadership perspective. The first is, I think CEO stands for Chief Emotion Officer, okay? You are managing emotion around you all the time. And I'm sure our principals and the heads in the room will appreciate this. Emotion in the business, outside the business, clients, stakeholders, wherever it might be, you're constantly handling emotion while trying to look after your own emotion. Number 2 is energy. Okay, I think this is one of the key and most important things that I can bring into my business. Having good energy in the good times, having good energy in some of the challenges as well. I think energy can solve a lot of problems. And I think lastly, education, okay? Chief Education Officer in the business. So we move ahead here. It's my responsibility to make sure that within 8 billion ideas, everybody is learning, but equally, I continue to learn, okay? I'm not the finished article by any stretch of the imagination. So how does a busy leader find time to continually learn? So this is what I believe CEO actually stands for. So I'm going to go into these 3 areas. I'm going to start with emotion. I think our schools and often in our businesses, they are highly emotional places, aren't they? Yeah. Yes, they are. There is a lot happening. And I had a conversation with a principal about 5 or 6 years ago where she kind of dropped this pebble to me and she said, look, schools are brilliantly busy. We've got students, bless you, we've got students, we've got teachers, we've got parents. You are one knock away on the door from a problem, aren't you? And everything gets thrown out the window for that particular day. And she said, I've just learned that you've just got to make sure that your emotion is always in check. And then I had another conversation with somebody about the fact that we make these ripples on a day-to-day basis. And I turned around and said something which some of you might think I'm absolutely mad. But actually, I started to think about myself as a pebble. Okay, literally a leader's job, you are a pebble that every single day you're being dropped into a pond and you are making ripples, aren't you? And they can be positive or they can be negative, okay? And people are affected by your mood as a leader, okay? And I'm going to do a little test here. But I'm going to give you an example of positive ripples and how my attitude and how my emotions are important, even to this engagement, okay? So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to start off as negative Dave, okay? Morning, everyone. And my name is Dave from 8 Billion Ideas. Okay. Positive Dave. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. And my name is Dave from 8 Billion Ideas. How are you today? Thank you. Do you like negative Dave or positive Dave? Okay, very different, right? Okay, and that kind of energy, that kind of understanding, that reasoning that I realize that I've got to look after my emotions to do that day in, day out is actually quite difficult. But if you're conscious of it as a leader, okay, you're conscious that your mood affects people around you every single day. Our mood affects us every single day in our schools. Then you can start doing a few little exercises on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you're looking after those emotions. And if you think about it from a school perspective, most schools are somewhere between 180 and 190 days of academic days every single year. And they are brilliantly busy places. There are so many opportunities to make positive and negative ripples. Okay, this is why leadership is really hard in particular schools, because it could be one thing that you say, one WhatsApp message, one conversation in a corridor, one line out of line in an assembly or whatever it might be, and then everybody starts to read into it, don't they? Okay, and this can be really, really difficult. Okay, there's so many opportunities every single day for leaders to make positive and indeed negative ripples. So handling one emotion as a leader, I think, is incredibly key, but it can be difficult. And I've spent a long time thinking about it because I think this is one of the key areas for myself as a leader. How do I do this as our business grows? A team of 42 today, maybe 50, 60, 200, 1,000 in a couple of years' time. As a leader, it's really important that I make sure I look after my emotions. And so therefore, I think actually it's the way that we start and end our days are critical to this. So the morning routine is something that I'm spending more and more time thinking about and reading about. And you read books such as the 5 a.m. Club, or you hear about Legacy, where James Keir was talking about how the All Blacks do this. And I came to an understanding that a lot of successful people out there, a lot of successful leaders in education, in business out there, realize that their morning routine is critical. From the moment that you wake up to when you engage with somebody, okay, your emotions could go in a good way or go in a bad way. And you actually think about it, there's so much you can control from when that alarm clock goes off to potentially when you're engaging with a teacher, member of staff, or a child at school. And it's important that we look after our emotions because you never know when that memorable moment is going to happen. Here are just a few examples of what can be controlled and some of the things which you can't control, and I'm sure we could have fun creating a huge list here. What I'm encouraging you to do, if you're a leader in the room or anybody, is constantly analyze that morning routine, and I'm being incredibly vulnerable to you here, showing you my developing morning routine, which isn't perfect, and I'm not necessarily advocating for people to wake up a little bit earlier. What I'm saying is own your morning a little bit more. See if you can carve out a little bit more me time, okay, which is that transition from when you are about to go from being dad to CEO, okay, mum to teacher, whatever it might be. Everybody every single morning needs to make sure that you are looking at it critically, because if you don't, it is impossible, in my opinion, for 190 days per annum to go into your schools and create good energy and handle your emotions, okay? I like the phrase of Usain Bolt, okay? Famous Olympian, won loads of gold medals, okay? Do you think he warmed up when he was about to take part in an Olympic final? Of course he did. Why did he warm up? To be ready, to avoid injury, to be at his peak. I think we could learn a lot from even someone like Usain Bolt and consider our warm-up routine as professionals in education. And equally at the end of the day, okay, sleep. Any good sleepers in the room? Lucky you, right? Sleep, we've got a chronic problem here, okay? Sleep is a major challenge, how we are getting ready to sleep at night, our cool-down routine, okay? We've got issues with handling and holding those devices for far too long at the moment, which means we're seeing more and more people struggle when they go to bed at night. So if you've got this circle of energy and emotion that you're trying to control and look after, if you don't have a better morning routine and you don't consider what you're doing at night, how can you possibly bring in positive, good emotions day in, day out? So first E of leadership for me is emotions. My first tip is go and do an analysis of your morning routine. Okay, see what you can do to own the morning a little bit more, and then start thinking about what you can do to transition from CEO back to being dad again and getting a good night's sleep at the end of the day. Part one. Part two, energy. Okay, energy. Lots of different definitions for this. The strength required to sustain that physical and mental activity day in, day out. I don't know about you, but I feel like I do a month's work in a week and a week's work in a day now compared to what I did before the pandemic. And it's not because I'm lazy, okay? It's because now we live in a world of virtual meetings, live meetings, Slack, WhatsApp, everything pinging at me all the time, okay? Which means you get a lot done, but equally it can be quite hard to keep your energy high. And right now we do have a worldwide crisis in education with burnout and indeed retention, with the amount of young people coming into the profession and leaving it, okay? Statistics from the UK is quite shocking and quite scary right now. So we need to consider how we're getting the right energy in our schools as well. As leaders, what I would encourage you to consider is who are the energy battens for you as a leader, handling that emotion, number one. Number two, keeping your energy high, okay? You can have good energy for good times. You can have good energy for when you're facing problems, okay? What's the point in taking bad energy into a problem? Will that resolve it quicker? Probably not. But equally, to get good energy for our schools all around the world, you need to consider your energy battens, okay? It's a phrase that I like. Somebody who has that can-do attitude or positivity in face of any kind of challenge. And some of you might have seen that you've got in the diffusion of innovation this chart before, where this actually talks about the fact that in most environments when they're trying to change, you get lots of different mindsets. People fall into these different kind of camps where you get the early innovators, you get the early adopters, the early majority, the late majority. I like to talk about the diffusion of energy, okay, in a school. Who are your high energy battens? Okay, you're not looking for the puppies which are running around all the time. That's one good bit of energy, but sometimes that can be infectious and making them realize that actually their energy is a strength if they use it to their advantage. But in your schools and in your businesses, if you've got businesses in the room, it doesn't necessarily have these potential percentage splits. But I'd consider, if you want good energy in your school day in, day out, you've got to identify those people in your schools who are good high energy battens as well, okay? And think about how you're utilizing them, how you're encouraging, how you're getting that diffusion of innovation in your schools, okay? It isn't a rocket science exercise, it's a pad, it's a pen, it's talking to SLT and going, right, who are the energy battens in this school? Making sure they realize that they're an energy batten, thanking them for being an energy batten. And equally, we need to be careful of those laggards, okay? Those negative energy battens. I'm not saying let's evaporate them, okay, at all, because actually a laggard often becomes a laggard because they're frustrated that the problems that they've seen in the past have never been dealt with. I think we should identify our laggards, sit down, speak to them, and I think actually if you have a good conversation with them, you can tap into some frustrations, put some new ideas in place, and you might see a flip. Okay, high energy battens are really important in any culture, and actually understanding who the laggards are, particularly in those staff rooms, okay, which are really worrying because you're seeing energy go into these staff rooms, a new teacher really, really excited, then you can see the laggard over there who wants to moan about everything. What happens? Their energy starts to come down as well. So if you're going to do this as a leader, think about it. I wouldn't necessarily publish your lists out there, but you might want to just consider who your positive energy battens are, who your laggards are, and think about little strategies that you can take with you as your business or indeed your school develops. I like to think about, I've got 2 seconds, I've got 2 minutes, Jonathan, and 27 seconds. I like to think about energy tracking as well. So I'm quite relentless with this. So I'm considering what I can do throughout a week to make sure I've got energy all 5 days of the week. The last thing is about education, okay? It is critically important that you don't stand still as a leader. A lot of people's approach to education, particularly when they become a leader of a school or SLT, is they consider the next kind of courses that they want to go on. Okay, and I actually think we can simplify this and make it a lot easier. That there's 3 different things that I just highly recommend that as a CEO, as a leader, as anybody that you continually do. Keep reading, right? We talk about lifelong learning and reading to our students, but more and more of us are not picking up a book, okay, and reading. Find the time to read at least 20 minutes a week. The second thing, podcasts, amazing, okay? We live in a world where we are very lucky that as individuals, we have access to great podcasts. Nearly every expert on the planet, author, whoever out there has been interviewed in a podcast. If you're fascinated by them, just go and listen to something. Play roulette occasionally and look and go, I might listen to this person I've never heard of. Keep listening to podcasts because you can learn a huge amount. And then equally surround yourself by great people. Okay, at times you can really learn. I'm very lucky to have, or 8 Billion Ideas is very lucky to work with Apex, which is a top ski academy. Some of you might or might not recognize a gentleman on the screen, Sir Clive Woodward, which is a phenomenal sporting mind. We've got a program around performance that we teach our students. When I go over to the academy, it's full of these ex-Olympians, Sir Clive, whatever it might be. I'm like on this kind of like CPD drive. It feels amazing to be around these people where I'm learning. That is very lucky, but all these great people exist around us every single day. So great people, our podcasts, our books are out there to learn from. Leadership is a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. Impacting others is a privilege. That's what leaders' responsibilities have. If you go to U34, you can see some of our resources. I don't think the books got stuck in custom. They might or might not be here later today, but we've got 100 copies of the book, The Ripple Effect, which we dive into this. If they're not here today, they'll be here tomorrow. So you have to come back and you can come get them. These resources are available online, so lots of QR codes there, far too many to try and take. But if you just reach out to 8bill, we can help you get these. Please connect on social. David J. Harkin on LinkedIn in particular, or 8billionideas.com. And Jonathan, I've used my time perfectly, so you can't have a go at me because it now says 0. All right, so thank you very much. Have a good conference.
Thank you.
I need a timer.
Thank you very much indeed. I told you he was a man who's a disruptor and full of energy, and he's educated us as well with a huge amount of positive emotion. So thank you very much, David, and do look at his stand. Fantastic stuff going on there.